3 points. That's all it was. That is the entire margin between being a legend and just being a footnote. If you were watching the AFT Dice Season 11 Grand Final, you know exactly the kind of heartbreak and euphoria I'm talking about. It is Thursday, February 12, 2026, and I honestly don't think my heart rate has settled down yet.
It was a statistical anomaly, wasn't it? I mean, it's the kind of game that makes you wonder if math has a sense of humor. A cruel one, maybe, but a sense of humor.
A very cruel one. But look, that's why we're here today. We've got the source sheets, we have the box scores, and we've got the schedule for the new season. Our mission today is to decode what on earth just happened in that chaotic grand final, figure out how the Gold Coast Suns pulled this off, and then get everyone prepped for season 12, which is unbelievably starting on March 1st.
Yeah, it's a really tight turnaround. But given how season 11 ended, I don't think anyone wants to wait. The storylines are just, they're left dangling there, begging for some kind of resolution.
All right, so before we get into the weeds, let's set the stage a little. For anyone who might be new to this AFT Dice League, we're talking Australian rules football, but simulated. So high variance, huge scores, dice rolls, basically determining the fate of these teams. But this grand final, this wasn't just numbers, this was a narrative arc you couldn't write. Gold Coast Suns versus GWS Giants at Metricon. So just break it down for us. What are the headline numbers?
The headline is simple. Gold Coast Suns 121, GWS Giants 118. But, I mean, that scoreline hides so much drama. If you look at the raw production, the Giants actually dominated the flow of the game. They generated 38 scoring shots. Gold Coast, they only managed 31.
7 more scoring shots.
7 more. In almost any sport, any simulation, if you generate that many more opportunities, you win. It's almost a given.
But they didn't. And this gets to the fundamental mechanic of Aussie rules that we should probably clarify. You have 2 ways to score. Kick it through the big post, that's a goal. Was 6 points, missed to the side, it's behind, worth just 1 point.
Exactly. It's binary. Big success or near miss. And this is precisely where the GWS Giants they fell apart. They rolled the dice 38 times for a score. And 22 of those times, they rolled a hang. Behind.
22 behinds, that sounds like a lot.
It's catastrophic. I mean, look at the breakdown. 16 goals, 22 behinds. They were just so inaccurate. Gold Coast, on the other hand, they were surgeons. 18 goals, only 13 behinds. They had fewer chances, but they converted them. They hit the 6s when it mattered.
So it's that old saying, bad kicking is bad football. Does that still hold up when a random number generator is doing the kicking?
I'd argue it applies even more. Because in a dice league, you can't blame the wind, right? You can't blame a weird bounce of the ball. It is pure probability. And for GWS to roll that many minor scores in the biggest game of the year, it just feels like the dice refused to cooperate when they needed a major.
Let's look at the flow of the game itself, because it wasn't a runaway win for Gold Coast at all. GWS actually started really hot.
They did. First quarter, they came out swinging. They put up 30 points to the Suns' 23. They looked in control. But that second quarter is where everything flipped. Gold Coast scored 29 points, and crucially, their defense held GWS to just 10.
Wow, that is a massive swing.
It really is. So you go into halftime with the Suns up 52-40, a 12-point lead. Now, in this league, 12 points is nothing. It's 2 kicks. But psychologically, you just felt a momentum shift.
And the third quarter was a shootout.
Complete fireworks. Gold Coast adds 38 points. GWS adds 42. They were just trading blows. So going into the final quarter, the Suns were up 90-82. And that just set up that agonizing finish where GWS threw everything at them but just kept missing.
Losing by 3 points when you missed 22 times. Yeah, that is going to haunt that coaching staff for a long, long time. But I want to zoom out a bit. Because the story isn't just how they played the final, it's how both teams even got there. This wasn't a battle of the number 1 and 2 seeds, was it?
Oh, not even close. And this is really the key insight from the whole season.
Yes.
Season 11 proved that the regular season ladder is almost irrelevant once the finals start. Both of these teams, Gold Coast and GWS, they came from the Elimination Finals.
The do-or-die bracket. No second chances.
Exactly. They had no safety net. They had to win 3 knockout games in a row just to get to the grand final. Usually, you'd expect fatigue to be a factor. You expect the teams who had the week off, the qualifying final winners, to be fresher. We saw the complete opposite.
Okay, let's trace Gold Coast's path. Because they had a moment in that first elimination final that, looking back, just feels like destiny.
You're talking about the game against Geelong, Elimination Final 2.
It's a heart attack game.
Gold Coast 117, Geelong 116. A 1-point margin.
1 point.
Think about that. They win the title by 3 points. They stay alive in the first week of finals by 1 point. If just one die roll is different in that Geelong game, the Suns are out, And we're talking about a completely different champion today.
It's just wild. And it seems like surviving that scare just unlocked something in them. Because after that, they didn't just win, they went nuclear.
They turned into a juggernaut. It's the only word for it. In the semifinal against West Coast, they won 122-63, a 59-point blowout. Then they go to the preliminary final against Brisbane. And remember, Brisbane was a top seed. They were rested. They were the favorites.
And the Suns just destroyed them.
132-73, another 59-point win. They won their way into the grand final by a combined margin of 118 points in 2 weeks. It's illogical. It suggests that in a dice league, maybe that intangible thing we call momentum is more valuable than physical rest.
That's a pretty hot take. You're saying the bye week, the week off, might actually be a disadvantage.
The data from season 11 screams yes. I mean, look at GWS on the other side. They did the same thing. They started against Richmond in the elimination final, won that 105-80. Then they faced Melbourne in the semifinals. Melbourne can score, but it didn't matter. GWS 135, Melbourne 104.
And then they ran into the other top seed, St. Kilda, in the prelim, the team that was sitting pretty, waiting for them.
And GWS just rolled right over them. 133-85. So you have both top seeds, Brisbane and St. Kilda. They sit out the first week. They get rested. They come out cold. And they get absolutely smashed by teams that have been fighting for their lives.
It really does challenge that conventional wisdom, doesn't it? If you're a coach in season 12, maybe you don't want that week off. Maybe you want to keep the dice warm.
It's the story of the season. The two teams with the hardest path bulldoze the teams with the easiest path. It forces you to rethink what advantage even means when variance is king.
Speaking of bulldozing, we have to talk about the scores in general this season. I was looking through the source sheets, and the numbers are just, they're video game numbers. This isn't a defensive league.
Not at all. And for anyone listening who follows traditional sports, you really need to recalibrate your expectations. In the NFL, 30 points is a good game. In real Aussie rules, 100 points is a great day. In the AFT Dice League, if you score 100, you are probably losing.
Right, 100 is a failing grade.
Basically, we're seeing scores push past 140 all the time. It's just high octane. The league mechanics seem designed to punish defensive play.
There was that game in round 5 that really stood out to me. Western Bulldogs versus St. Kilda.
Ah, yes. The No Defense Bowl. Western Bulldogs 146, St. Kilda 136.
146-136.
That's nearly 300 points combined. It just shows you how volatile this is. St. Kilda kicked 21 goals and still lost because the other team kicked 22. It's not about defense, it's a race.
And the Bulldogs seem to be in a lot of these chaotic games. They were on the wrong end of one a few weeks later, weren't they?
Round 8 against GWS. The Giants put up 149. The Bulldogs scored 101.
Imagine scoring 101 points and losing by nearly 50.
It's brutal, but it just tells you that offense is king. Look at round 3. Fremantle put up 143 against Essendon.
So the takeaway for anyone listening is, expect chaos. No lead is ever safe. Which is a perfect segue to where we are now, February 2026. The dust is barely settled, and we're already looking at season 12.
March 1st. That's the date. Put it in your calendar. We have the round 1 schedule right here, and I want to go through these because looking at them through this lens of chaos and upsets, there are some fascinating storylines. Let's start with the champions, the Gold Coast Suns. They don't get an easy start, do they?
No victory lap for them. They're traveling to the SCG to face the Sydney Swans. And Sydney was a solid team last year. They're a tough nut to crack at home.
Is there such a thing as a premiership hangover in a dice league?
That's the million-dollar question. Gold Coast feels invincible right now. But Sydney will want to knock them down a peg. And remember, Gold Coast's whole run was fueled by momentum. Has they lost that? The dice don't have a memory.
Okay, then we have the runner-up, GWS Giants. They're at home against Essendon. This feels like a get-right game for them.
It is the redemption tour, isn't it? They lost the title by 3 points. They know they should have won. They are going to come out angry. And Essendon. Well, Essendon was on the wrong end of a few of those blowouts last year. If GWS brings their finals form and fixes their accuracy, this could get ugly for the Bombers.
Now, here's a matchup I really love. St. Kilda versus the Brisbane Lions at Marvel Stadium. Why is this one so significant?
Because these are the two almost teams. These are your top seeds, the heavyweights.
Yeah.
And they both got humiliated in the preliminary finals.
They were the ones who got rested and rusted.
Exactly. Both of them have a massive point to prove. They need to show that their regular season dominance wasn't a fluke. This is a battle for psychological recovery as much as anything.
Let's move to the MCG, the home of football. Richmond versus Melbourne.
A classic fixture, and historically it's a shootout. If you look at season 11, round 1 so. A year ago, Richmond beat Melbourne 136 to 128.
There are those numbers again, 136 to 128.
If that repeats, we're looking at 40-plus goals in an afternoon. I'd expect this to be the most entertaining game of the round for a neutral, just pure offense.
Heading west, AFT Stadium, Fremantle versus Collingwood.
This is another rematch from round 1 last season. In that game, Fremantle won easily, 115 to 64. Collingwood's offense just never got going.
64 points is incredibly low for this league.
It's anemic. You're just not competitive. Collingwood has to show they've changed something. Fremantle, at home, knowing they can hit 140, they're going in as heavy favorites.
Back to Marvel, Carlton versus West Coast Eagles.
This was a close one last year. West Coast won the opener 108 to 99, a 9-point game. Carlton showed they can explode later in the season. I see this as a total toss-up. Both teams have high ceilings and very low floors.
Now, the one I've circled. The showdown.
Yeah.
Adelaide Crows versus Port Adelaide. Local derbies are always intense, but last year
was a crime scene.
that's one way to put it.
Adelaide 138, Port Adelaide 72. They doubled their score. A 66-point margin in a rivalry game is humiliating. Fans don't forget that.
How does Port Adelaide recover?
They have to. They will be absolutely desperate to avoid a repeat. Adelaide, meanwhile, just wants to twist the knife.
2 more to go. Geelong Cats versus North Melbourne.
Now listen to the scoreline from their last meeting in round 1. Geelong 77, North Melbourne 67.
That is surprisingly low scoring. Defensive, even.
It's a grinder's game. Geelong seems to be one of the few teams that can drag opponents into the mud. They play tight games. North Melbourne, though, had a leaky defense all year. It's a real clash of styles.
And finally, Hawthorn versus the Western Bulldogs.
Another tight one last year. Hawthorn won 89 to 82. But again, you have the Bulldogs, the Chaos Agents. They can score 146. They can concede 149. This is all about tempo. If the Bulldogs turn into a track meet, they probably win. If Hawthorn keeps it structured, they have a great shot.
So looking at this whole slate, we've got grudge matches, redemption arcs, the champs defending their crown. It all feels so precarious.
That's the beauty of round 1. All those stats from season 11, the 22 behinds, the 140-point games, it's all just historical data now. Everyone starts at 0. The dice are fresh.
But you have to imagine the Gold Coast Suns are walking a little taller. To go from a 1-point survival to lifting the cup, that's a fairy tale.
It is. And on the flip side, you have to feel for GWS. To lose a grand final because of accuracy, that sticks with you. It reminds us that history can turn on a single bounce of the dice. That 3-point margin is basically a rounding error, but it defines an entire season.
It's a harsh lesson in variance. You can do everything right, generate the shots, and the dice can just say no.
That's the game. And if I can leave you with one thought, it's this. Don't trust the seedings. As we saw with Brisbane and St. Kilda, being the best in the regular season guarantees you absolutely nothing. All you need is a ticket to the dance and a hot hand.
So mark your calendars. Sunday, March 1st, 2026. The dice start rolling all over again. Will the Suns keep shining? Will the Giants find their accuracy? Or will a new chaos agent just flip the table on everyone?
I can't wait to find out.
Neither can I. Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll be watching closely when that first die is cast. Until then, keep analyzing the odds.
And trust the numbers, even when they break your heart.